أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Future Stars on Hidayat TV. I'm your host Hassan Shah. Today we're continuing with talking about divine guidance, divine wisdom, and talking about things getting us getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're continuing with that and talking about the wisdom behind Allah's actions and looking a little bit into we've already delved in this topic a little bit, but hopefully we can dissect it a little bit more. So before we start, I'd like to introduce the people joining me today.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Misbah.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Mohsen.
And thank you for the introduction. So last week we talked a little bit about the misjustice, the mistreatment of the Ahlul Bayt after the passing away of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We talked a little bit. We talked a little bit about that, and we talked about some important concepts about tawalla and tabarra as well. Yeah, and how we actually find them, how we actually base those beliefs that we have. Yeah, and before that, we've been going on with our divine guidance and also understanding Allah series. Yeah, where we talked a little bit about those two ideas, those two beliefs that we have. Yeah, and today we're focusing on something that we've touched on in some of these episodes, but hopefully we can dissect a little bit more in this episode as well, which is wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's action. Yes, so we'll start off with you, Misbah. What was some of the things that we might have touched on talking about this topic?
We touched on how Allah is the wisest of all of us. So if like something happens that we're not happy with, there's always a reason why, and God knows that reason, and we might not know. So
Okay.
it kind of links with the wisdom because it's basically explaining how God has that wisdom and we don't. So whatever action he may do that might anger us, he knows the reason why, and we do not know.
Yeah. Okay. Mohsen?
Similar to what Misbah said, it's when something happens and you don't know why it happened. It could be to benefit you, but you wouldn't truly know. So it's similar to what Misbah said.
Yeah, okay, so we'll start off with those two concepts that Mohsen and Misbah has given us and see how we can develop and maybe rectify them and give some improvements to those definitions that Mohsen and Misbah gave. But as a good starting basis, those are really good in understanding this concept. So, Misbah, you've got the first thing, so we can start Misbah off with the loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
What is wisdom? Wisdom is the ability to use our knowledge and experiences to make good decisions and judgments. The Arabic word for wisdom is hikmah, and a wise person is called hakim. There is wisdom in whatever Allah does. From our Usul-Din, we know that Allah is just. Allah is never mean to anyone, and He grants kindness to all His creatures. He expects from His creatures what they are capable of. Many a times, a person may feel that he or she has been treated unjustly as compared to their friends because they live in a better and bigger house, or go to a better school, have better looks, or are more popular. We also see people who do all sorts of haram actions, but they lead to what looks like a very happy and prosperous life. We also see people who perform all their wajib actions and even do mustahab ones, but they seem to lead a life full of difficulties. In such situations, we tend to quickly judge that Allah is unfair. However, this is not the case. The people who do haram actions are like those who climb a tree higher and higher and think that they are getting more successful. But when they fall down from the tree, they realize that their going up was the beginning of their troubles. On the other hand, people who do good but suffer with troubles should remember that the troubles are a form of test from Allah. From the previous lesson, do you remember why Allah tests us? There are many things that appear to be harmful but are actually good for us. Similarly, there are many things which appear to be very good but are actually harmful to us. There may have been situations where you wanted something and your parents said that it was not good for you, and you just could not understand why it was bad for you. This is because your parents are wiser than you and know better than you. Similarly, Allah is the wisest of all. Surah Nisa, Surah 4, verse 19. It may be that you dislike a thing while Allah has placed abundant good in it. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala. Thank you for that, Misbah. So, Mohsen, what did Misbah go through in her starting point there?
So she first defined wisdom, which is the ability to use their knowledge and experiences to make good decisions and judgments. And then she went on to talk about wisdom in whatever Allah does. Um, so she started off talking about Rasulullah, and we know that Allah is just, so He wouldn't do anything that is unjust. And then she went on to talk about people who think they're doing the right thing, and then she gave the example of the tree. When the people start climbing, they think they're doing very well, but then when they fall down, they realise that they're going up with the trouble. And then she went on to talk about why do good people, why do good, who do good suffer with troubles, and then they realise that it's a test from Allah.
Yeah. So it's already talking about stuff that we have gone through a little bit, but this is giving a bit more detail. So she went over wisdom and wisdom in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actions as well. Yeah, and where do we get this belief from? Why do we get this? Why do we have this belief? Yeah, and she sourced the Quran, didn't she? And talking about an ayat from Surah Nisa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it may be that you dislike a thing, but Allah has placed abundant good in it. Yeah. So we have this concept of and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, yeah, that He is, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the wisest. Yeah. Yeah. Al Hakim, the wise. Yeah. So we're using that as a base, aren't we, to develop this thing that we're learning about today. So Mohsin, you've got the next thing. So start, Mohsin, off with the last salawat. Allahumma salli ala.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farjahum. Did you know there are many creatures of Allah which we think are harmful or useless, but they are actually very helpful to the environment? The lizard, for example, can seem quite a creepy creature, but it can actually act as a form of pest control as it consumes tiny insects. Similarly, many people fear snakes, but they are useful in keeping pests such as mice under control. Story time. A father was on his way to the masjid for Salatul Jummah. On his way, he passed by the houses of his two daughters and asked each one what they wanted him to pray for after Salah. The first daughter was married to a farmer. She asked her father to pray for rain so that the crops of her husband had planted would grow. The second daughter was married to a potter. She asked her father to pray for it not to rain and for it to be very dry and sunny so that the pot her husband made from clay would be dry. The father continued his journeys toward the masjid. He was very confused and not knowing what to pray for, as both daughters had asked for opposite things. He finally decided to pray to Allah to do what he thought was just, as that would be the only fair solution. The moral of the story is that if sometimes Allah gives us what we want, it may mean that we will be unfair to someone else. Allah loves us all and does want us. Dad does what best for us, and we must thank Him at all times during times of happiness and griefs. We should always pray to Allah to do what is best for us. Even when we ask Him for something, we should bear in mind He should only grant us our request if He is pleased with it, if it is good for us, and if it is going to help us get closer to Him. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Thank you for that. Yeah. So, Miss, where did Mohsin start off there?
She talked about how there was creatures of Allah that we think are harmful or useless, but they're actually helpful to the environment, which kind of links because it talking about like how there's two sides and how like with Allah and the decision He makes, we may think it's unjust, but there's actually another reason why. And then he mentioned a story about a father who was on his way to do Jummah Salah, and he asked his daughters what he should pray for, and they both had opposite ideas. So he decided to pray for what Allah thought was the best option out of it, just to show that Allah has a higher wisdom than us, and He knows what should what should happen. So even if it annoyed another person, there's a reason why he's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, so start off with example of those different species and how they work together, and it's all if you do do biology in school and you learn about all these, you learn about food webs and you learn about these different ecosystems that work together. You take one species out, yeah, it messes up the whole thing, doesn't it? Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's placed together in such an order. This is going on to another thing about the order of this world and how 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 like niche it is, that how can it be without design. But that's going on to another thing as well, going on to the proof of the existence of God. And but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in that, even in that small food web up to the up to at the insects, yeah, and even to the microscopic level, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has there there's always an order in his creation, isn't it? Yeah. So that um goes into the wisdom part of his creation. There's always a wisdom in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Yeah. And it relates to the thing that most of them went onto on the story, doesn't it? Yeah, about praying for things that you want, praying for things that you think that you want to have in your life, or it's to do with that idea. Yeah, about if you, I like that those two prayers, that those two du'as that those people wanted that father to make. There were two conflicting ones, wasn't there? Yeah, there were you can't there were conflicting ones, yeah. So what why what is the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala picks to accept one but not accept the other? Yeah, that is the idea of this divine wisdom. And what is another story that we can talk about and understand further this divine wisdom? Any stories from the Quran or anything that you guys can think of that we can maybe understand this a bit better? Or maybe a thing that I've said on this show before. There's one from the Quran which we can talk about, a story with Prophet Musa alayhi salam, yeah, and another person, yeah. And who's that other person?
Prophet Hizar.
Yeah, Khizr, yeah, yeah. So there's Prophet Musa and Khizr, that story. So Misbah, do you remember that story?
I think it Prophet Musa was sent to go to to Khizr, sorry, because he had Allah told him that he had more knowledge, and then they went on this whole journey, and Prophet Khizr was doing like stuff that confused the Prophet as to why he was doing it, and he kept asking questions, and Khizr told him not to ask any questions. And then after the journey was over, he explained the actual true reason why, like showing how he didn't like he had the wisdom and he didn't know, so he should just believe that there was a good enough reason for why he was doing those things.
Yeah, there was so. When we look back, yeah, and we think about what will be if I ask for something, what will be the effects on the world around me, yeah. If I ask for this thing or I want this thing to happen, what will what is it? There's so many factors that take place, isn't there? Yeah, so many things that can be affected, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses his wisdom in accepting things and delaying things or not accepting other things that you, yeah. So then we go on to the story of Khizr. Yeah, like Misbah said. So the first thing was the thing to do with the boat, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The boat where he puts a hole in the boat. Yeah, and then Musa asked, "Why you?" These were fishermen that relied on this boat to go get what they need to and then make money. Yeah, and then was the killing of that man, yeah, and then was the breaking of the wall, wasn't it? Yeah, if I'm remembering that story right. So those things happened, yeah, and then all afterwards, Khizr told Musa alayhi salam about the reason for each of these actions. And then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling this story and he tells the reasons what Khizr gives, yeah, we understand why those things had to happen. Yeah, why he had to make the hole in the boat. Yeah, because of that king and wanted to seize all the boats, and they wouldn't have ever. He made the hole in a way that the boat could be easily repaired. Yeah, so it wouldn't be seized by the king who was taking all the boats, so they could eventually continue making their money off fishing. Yeah, so there was all these other different reasons. Yeah, and it's to understand that it's not, when you think of something, it's not as simple as I want this and I'm gonna get it. Yeah, it's not that simple. And how where you only see your point of view. Yeah, you're remember when you're going through life, you're only seeing your own point of view, aren't you? Yeah, and you're not seeing the other people around you. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He that is there's an analogy that I gave a couple of episodes when we started talking a little bit about divine wisdom. Yeah, was that we see the pixel on the screen. Yeah, we have this screen, we have this computer screen in front of us. We only see the pixel. Yeah, where Allah Subhanahu wa Taala sees the whole screen and able to see and understand and see the whole picture, where we only see a small part of it. Yeah, so we only see our worldview, we only see our point of view, and we don't see anyone else's or the world as a whole. But Allah Subhanahu wa Taala does. So we know Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is all wise. So there's obviously then He has His wisdom in His actions. Yeah. So Miss, you've got the next thing. So start Miss off with the last salawat. Allahumma salli ala
اللهم
Muhammad.
صل على محمد وعلى محمد وجل.
According to the Imama, if we see something that seems to be unfair, instead of assuming Allah is doing something unjust, we must assume that there is some wisdom and a very good reason that Allah knows but we do not know or understand. Why our du'as are sometimes not accepted. We have learned that we must always ask Allah for anything that we want. However, sometimes our wishes are granted. Once again, this is due to Allah's wisdom. If a young child sees a shiny red knife and he wants to hold it because of the attractive color, will you give the knife to the child? Obviously not, because you're wiser than the child and know that the knife will hurt the child. Even if the child cries, you will not give it to him. Similarly, due to our limited knowledge, we sometimes ask Allah for something that may not be good for us, and therefore He does not give it to us. Sometimes Allah delays in fulfilling the wishes of His servant, and this may be to allow the servant to ask for the dua more intensely, thus bringing him closer to his Lord. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam has said, sometimes a believer prays for a need before Allah, but he orders his angel to delay the granting of the servant's needs because he loves to hear his voice and dua more. Then on the day of judgment says to him, my servant, you call me, but I delayed your request. Now in return I will bestow upon you such and such reward for so and so supplication. Hearing this, the servant would say, I wish none of my deeds would have been granted in the world. He says so because he sees the excellent rewards of the hereafter. Key points. Wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Intelligence, on the other hand, means the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. All of Allah's actions are based on wisdom. We must accept whatever decision Allah has made for us, keeping in mind that He knows what is best for us. Acceptance of our du'as may be delayed because whatever we ask for may not be good for us, or Allah may be testing us. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وجل.
Uh, Thank you for that, Misbah. Okay, so going on to things that our imams have talked about. Yeah, talking about this because obviously when people maybe ask for something in their duas, yeah, and it hasn't come, it hasn't happened, or they've wanted something to happen and it hasn't happened, and so they always see, for some reason, because they're only seeing at their own point of view, they're always seeing bad things happening to us, to ourselves. Yeah, we always look at the bad things that always occur to us. Yeah, because there's always this, and we see it all the time. Whenever anything good happens to us, we're so proud of ourselves. We're like, we achieved this, we did this goal. Yeah, we've done this. And whenever anything bad, or anything tragic, or anything um, occurs onto us, yeah, and happens to us, we always go and complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yeah, which is something we should, obviously something we can do, yeah, and we go and we see a bad thing in our life and we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a good thing, which is something our prophets and imams did as well, yeah. But what about those good things that Allah has blessed you with? Yeah, those is that good health or anything that in your life that which you have been blessed with. Yeah, you don't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, but for all for all the bad things, you're always wondering, why is this always happening to me? Yeah, why does it have to happen to me? And it's always why me, why me, why me? Yeah. And why is my dua not being accepted, this and that? But this is what this idea is all, this concept, this belief that we have is all about. Yeah. And the Misbah gave a narration there from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, where he talked about this. And Mohsin, what was the grasp of this narration? What was it on about? What was it talking about?
It was talking about how you ask Allah for something, but He delays it for a while, and then on the day of judgment, he said to him, "My servant, you called me, but I delayed your request. Now in return, I will bestow upon you such and such reward for so and so supplication." So it's saying that He delayed it for a while, only to give you something better, so to increase it about tenfold, maybe more.
Yeah. So when we look at something from our own small pixel that we see on the screen, and we look and we, why is this happening to me? Yeah. Or why is this happening in the world? Why is this unfair thing occurring? Yeah. Instead, we should assume that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not doing something unjust. This is not something unjust. Yeah. We must assume that there's some wisdom, and there's a very good reason why this occurs, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows this to occur. Yeah. And we always know in hardship we grow. Yeah, we grow, we prosper. Yeah. And we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and grow our beliefs, and we grow our strength in belief. Yeah. So that's the point of view of our imams, yeah, when they talked about this. And then Misbah went on talking about our dua sometimes not being accepted, and that was talked about in the ahadith. But Misbah, if you want to go on a little bit about what you mentioned there.
I mentioned how du'as might not be accepted due to God knowing there's another reason why, and like whatever we maybe have been asking for may be something that might harm us, and God knowing that wisdom, so He can make sure that doesn't happen, or because He wants to test us. And that, like you said, it did link back to the hadith, because it was explaining how the person prays for something, but God has delayed it for whatever reason, but then after he realizes that he's going to be granted something better, wants to know, he like says he wished none of his views would be granted in this world, so because he knows that another hereafter would actually be better and more things can be granted there.
Yeah. And also the example that you gave of the child and the knife. Yeah. The child wants a knife, but the parent is obviously not going to give the child the knife, because he knows the dangers that comes with giving the child a knife. Yeah. And if we look at this and we apply it on something else, maybe in our situation, we want this car. Yeah, we wish that we could get a car. We want a car so bad, or we want a new game, or we want a certain clothes or anything that occurs in our life, status, power, money, yeah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks it looks at the whole picture, yeah, and sees if I give it to him, what will be the consequences of giving that item to him, yeah, or giving that status, or giving that power, or giving that money to that person, yeah. But we also can look at that analogy as well. When the child is older and more developed and more mature, yeah, the knife can be given to him, can't he? So he can use it in a way that is good. So he can, I don't know, he can use it for his purpose, to be cut fruits or whatever, to cut his food, yeah. So when he's at the age which is mature, and he knows, and it would be good for him to have this thing, then it would be given to him. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's divine wisdom works, yeah. So some important points there mentioned by you, Mohsin and Misbah. So now we're going to talk a little bit about we're going back on this getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala topic now, and hopefully we can start off talking about understanding as-salah, understanding our namaz. Yeah, so Misbah, Mohsin, you got the first thing. So can we start Mohsin off with the loud salawat? Allahumma salli ala
اللهم صل
Muhammad.
على محمد.
What was your pleasure?
Oh, 1 second. I just need to load it. Okay. There.
Salawat. Allahumma salli
Allahumma
ala
salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The importance of understanding Salah. How we can glorify Allah with all our heart if we are just mindlessly reciting words of which we do not know the meaning. How can our Salah elevate us to the level of Miraj if there is no soul in our Salah? Understanding the recitation of Salah gives our Salah significance, increases its value, and allows it to soar. Once we understand what we are reciting, we will be able to pray with our heart and mind, concentrating fully on our dialogue with Allah. Ali heard a story time. Ali heard a knocking on the bathroom door. Called out, "Hurry up, Mehdi! I want to do wudu as well." Mehdi replied, "I'm done." Mehdi walked out into the salah room, pulled up his sleeves, down over his wet arms, and stood on the musalla. Allahu Akbar, he recited with his palm by his ears, and in Takbir al-Ihram, he began his salah. Ali Hadis then joined his younger brother in the family salah room. He watched young Mehdi bounce up from from sujood and into Gira. Mehdi zoomed through the Surat al-Fatiha and then went into Ruku. He finished his salah and then turned to his brother and said, Ali Hadi, I remembered all the words of salah and the actions too, and I finished in record time. Ali Hadi said lovingly, Mehdi, it is great that you have learned the method of salah and can now pray by yourself. But there is much more to salah than the actions. Shall we take your salah to the next level? Mehdi asked, next level. The Ali Hadi then explained, when we stand before Allah, we must be calm and we must concentrate on the words we are reciting. Do you remember that every action has a deeper meaning? Mehdi replied, yes. Like Nia, when I say Qurbatan illallah with all my heart, it means that my salah is only for Allah. Ali Hadi continued, yes, in Qiyam we are standing in front of Allah and His humble servant. Our salah should be performed slowly and gracefully, not in a rush. Isn't it rude to rush our meeting with the Lord of the worlds? Did you know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that the one who does not perform his ruku or sujood properly is like a crow pecking? Mehdi looked embarrassed and said, I want to be a crow. I think I was reciting my surah too fast as well. Ali Hadi then said, we can try harder to make our salah even better each time we pray. It will help if you better understand what you're reciting. Your salah will become sweeter. Mehdi asked, so now I have to learn the meaning of the Arabic. Ali Hadi's reply, well, you don't have to, but let's say a man knocks on your door and says something about you in Chinese and then leaves. Wouldn't you be curious to know what he was saying? Mehdi replied, not really. He's a stranger and won't come back. Ali Hadi then said, what if he does? What if he comes back 5 times every single day? Wouldn't you want to know then? Mehdi concluded, if he comes every day, I'll have to learn Chinese. Ali Hadi laughed and yes, while we knock on Allah's door in Salah and speak to him in Arabic, what is the point if we don't understand what we are saying? If we want our Salah to reach the next level and become our mirage, then we should understand our words and actions. Mehdi asked, that makes sense, but why Arabic? Why not English? I already know everything. I already understand everything. Understand English, and Allah knows everything, so He will know what I'm saying anyway. Ali Hadi smiled and explained, because Arabic is a language of the Quran, and it is the language that Allah chose for us to speak to Him in. Mehdi agreed, I get it now. And I know another reason. If Allah chooses the language of Salah, then all the believers around the world are saying the same word, so there's more unity. Ali Hadi replied, exactly. So are you ready to understand your Salah, Mehdi? Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So thank you for that, Mohsin. So coming off talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom, yeah, and if we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has wisdom in the actions that we have in our daily life, what He gives us, what He provides for us, what He allows to happen, what He doesn't allow to happen, there's obviously a wisdom in what He prescribes us to do, yeah, to fast in Ramadan, to give zakat, khums, and go to Hajj, and one of the biggest one to do our namaz, yeah, to pray and do our salah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yeah. So there's obviously wisdom in that he gives us, and we've talked a little bit about that and why He has prescribed salah as well. But this is understanding our salah and developing our salah as well, which hopefully we can do now across the next couple of episodes. And and the main thing is that we don't concentrate in our namaz, and we don't understand what the meaning of what we're saying are the main things, and maybe the philosophy of our salah as well, which hopefully we can all get into and talk about in the next couple of episodes. So thank you, Mohsen and Misbah, for teaching us about this topic of divine wisdom and helping us dissect it and understand it a bit more, yeah. And now we can understand that when we maybe make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we realize that we're not getting for this certain thing that we're asking for, that maybe this thing won't be good for us, yeah. And maybe there's some aspect there that means that we need to develop in some other aspect in our life to get better and improve ourselves. So hopefully we're able to understand and get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that way as well. And I thank you, Mohsen and Misbah, for teaching us a little bit about that. And I thank you at home for joining me on today's show. And I'll see you next week, same time, same place on Hidayat TV. But until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.